Welcome to AK Anime Explainer. Today is explanation of Soul Land 3, Legend of the Dragon King Part 231. Without any delay, start explanation. When Xu Xiaoyan saw Tang Wulin made that move, she turned pale from fear. She unleashed her soul skill Dazzling Starlight in the nick of time. Countless beams of starlight shot forcefully toward Tang Wulin and enveloped his body instantly. However, this did not stop Tang Wulin's golden dragon spear from being hurled. The domineering golden dragon body was followed closely by the golden dragon spear. Tang Wulin moved his hands separately in a vertical direction. When the dazzling starlight shone on him, he made a very strange motion. His alternating hands formed the shapes of claws. He aligned his palms together and took a step forward with his left foot. He seemed to be hitting out with a punch. Yu Jingyu looked on as the golden dragon spear shot toward him. Subsequently, his colors drained. His light of judgment had shone on Tang Wulin's body, but he was still a step behind the golden dragon spear. The light of judgment was absorbed by the domineering golden dragon body. Tang Wulin's mirror-like battle armor flickered rapidly. Currently, the dazzling starlight had already reached him and immobilized him on the spot. Yu Jingyu stepped to the side and shielded Xu Xiaoyan. The saint sword in his grip, he hacked with all his might as he attempted to parry the golden dragon spear. However, the golden dragon spear had not reached him yet when he felt the sharp aura seemingly stabbing his body. He was unable to stop it. He was very sure that even if he had adjusted his battle armor's defensive abilities to its maximum with the bloodthirsty Bean Bun's enhancement, he would still be unable to ward off Tang Wulin's attack. The golden dragon spear was truly formidable. Who would dare say that the captain did not have any long-range attacks? The sharp sword gleam finally reached him in the nick of time. It stabbed at the golden dragon lance's side with utmost precision. The golden dragon lance emitted a dragon's roar and its glow dimmed somewhat. It was then that Yu Jingyu's saint sword slashed the golden dragon lance. Even though Yi Xinglan had blocked most of the golden dragon lance's power, when Yu Jingyu's slash landed on the golden dragon lance, he still trembled violently. He was taken aback as if he was electrocuted and almost bumped into Xu Xiaoyan. The golden dragon lance shot upward with a roar. In that instant, the saint sword was shattered. On the other side, it was Yuan and Yehui who charged toward Tang Wulin. The enemy attacked a key point which called for reinforcements. Yi Xinglan, who should have been here, was distracted by the golden dragon lance. In the end, she chose to rescue her comrade. The giant hammer rose and crashed down onto his head. The way Yuan and Yehui saw it, Tang Wulin was currently held in place by the dazzling starlight. His domineering golden dragon body was activated by the light of judgment. Although his attacks would be stronger if he launched a counterattack now, he had to rely on himself for his defenses. In order to be on time, she did not use her soul skills. Instead, the all-out attack with her Devil Titan had reached Tang Wulin. It hit the target. Yuan and Yehui rejoiced in her heart. However, at this very moment, she felt a peculiar swirling force which originated from Tang Wulin. Her giant hammer which should have struck Tang Wulin's chest had been grabbed and twisted by him. Her body was also made to revolve from her giant hammer's twisting momentum. Just when the giant hammer fell into Tang Wulin's hand, he was also released from the dazzling starlight. Tang Wulin did not bother with Yuan and Yehui who was nearby. Instead, he was targeting Xu Xiaoyan. A sharp glow shot out from Tang Wulin's side. It reached Yuan and Yehui who had lost control of her body. Was that not Xie Xie? Before this, he had Tang Wulin shielding him. Even the dazzling starlight was blocked by Tang Wulin and he was not affected in the least. At the crucial moment, his long-prepared twin dragon daggers attacked with lightning speed. One of them was illusory while the other was real. He split into two clones and attacked from both sides. A sonorous dragon's roar came from Tang Wulin's body. A circle of golden soul ring shone forth from under his feet. The Golden Dragon King's fourth bloodline soul skill, Golden Dragon Rage Domain. Xie Xie initially had a trace of the Dragon Clan's bloodline. The Golden Dragon Rage Domain's enhancement had a strong effect on him. He felt the bloodline aura of his entire body surged suddenly, and his two clones immediately reached Yuan and Yehue. Xie. At this moment, a strange scene unfolded. Surprisingly, Yuan and Yehue did not attempt to defend herself. Instead, she lowered her hands and her stature shrunk instantly. She regained her original form. She even called Xie's name once in a sweet, feminine voice. Her voice was very gentle. It could even be described as seductive. If there had been a magnifying glass beside Xie now, the goosebumps on his body would certainly have been visible. The two clones crossed each other, but the twin dragon daggers were retracted. None of his attacks landed on Yuan and Yehue. Yuan and Yehue smiled sweetly. She turned and gave a kick with one of her long legs at the same time. Her kick landed right on Xie's buttocks, and she sent him flying. Tang Wulin was speechless. It was supposed to be a sure kill. However, Xie had let him down at the final moment. They were naturally at a disadvantage with 2 against 5. If they wanted to win, they had to find another way. The one who posed the biggest threat to him was Xu Xiaoyan. That was why Tang Wulin had restricted her by using his spear. Then, he created an opportunity to isolate Yuan and Yehue and restrained her. If Xie had obtained victory just now, it would have been much easier to fight with 2 against 4. However, who would have thought that Xie would chicken out at the crucial moment? Not only was he sent flying from a kick, but he also did not even get back to his feet after he face-planted himself on the ground. Once again, his bloodline was sealed by Yuan and Yehue. Compared to the golden dragon spear before this, the giant hammer tossed by Tang Wulin was far inferior in terms of power. Without the golden dragon spear's speed and sharpness, the hammer was parried by Yi Xinglan. Tang Wulin suddenly hit out with a punch. Although the punch had sent Yuan and Yehue reeling under the effects of the star chain, the impact was evenly distributed among them. So, the punch did not harm her in the slightest. You guys are perverse. How could you use such techniques? Tang Wulin said with grief and indignation. Yuan and Yehue chuckled. Captain, we all graduated from the Demon Island. Have you forgotten what we learned from that place? Her voice had barely faded when he was surrounded by Yi Xinglan, Yu Jingyu, and Yuan and Yehue herself. A circle of star wheel shackles had also appeared under Tang Wulin's feet. Feeling helpless, Tang Wulin had no other choice but to unleash the domineering golden dragon body again. At the same time, he executed his strange pose again. When they thought about it, it was quite strange. After he struck the pose, anyone who attacked him would be sent reeling. Even Yuan and Yehue was sent reeling despite her strength. It applied to everyone else. Even when Yi Xinglan's Star Saint sword stabbed at him, she felt as if she had stabbed into a vortex which sent her reeling as well. Under this peculiar posture, Tang Wulin escaped danger once again. However, he was facing a joint attack by 5 individuals. When he did not face any imminent danger from their attacks, he was constantly under Xu Xiaoyan's control. This was a tragedy for Tang Wulin. What left him speechless was the person who broke through his strange pose was surprisingly Xu Lixi. He did not know when Xu Lixi went behind him. A plump hand coupled with some purplish-black glow was pressed onto his back silently. An extremely domineering destructive aura made Tang Wulin unable to strike the strange pose when the next round of the star wheel shackles and the dazzling starlight hit him. Then, 5 minutes later, a blue-nosed, swollen-faced Tang Wulin sat gloomily in the trial arena. Xie, who was nearby, dared not even look at him. Yu Jingyu said triumphantly, "Captain, do you understand now? Fear not a godlike opponent, but fear a pig-like teammate. If I were you, I won't hold myself back, I'll fight it out with him one-on-one." When they clobbered Tang Wulin just now, they did not show any mercy. However, Tang Wulin's defensive abilities left them astonished once again. Under the joint attacks of 3 Assault System Battle Soul Masters, he had surprisingly held his ground before choosing to surrender. Throughout the 5 minutes, he had attempted to break through their attacks multiple times. However, his attempts were foiled by Xu Xiaoyan's timely controls. Without a doubt, if it were not for Xu Xiaoyon's extremely powerful controls, they might not have won against Tang Wulin even if they had fought him 3 against 1. Even if they had won, they would probably have paid a dear price for it. The bruises on Tang Wulin's face were fading quickly. With his recovery abilities, these minor wounds amounted to nothing. Xie said in an obedient manner, "Big brother, it's my fault. But I didn't do it on purpose, honest. Yuan never acted this way before. I promise, it won't happen next time." Tang Wulin glared at him. "There won't be a next time. If she calls you hubby the next time, you might even attack me." Xie raised his head in astonishment. He looked at Tang Wulin, then he looked at Yuan and Yehui. It seemed that such an incident might, indeed most probably would, happen. Before Yuan and Yehui, he truly had little to no combat strength. Tang Wulin sent the fellow flying with one kick. The others broke into laughter. Yuan and Yehui said distastefully, "Who'd call him that? Don't even think about it." Slightly exasperated, Tang Wulin said, "I roughly know about your conditions. I'll personally tailor some plans for you after this. Let's call it a day." After parting with his companions, Tang Wulin returned to his little wooden hut. It was only then that a hint of loneliness appeared on his face. He had witnessed his companions going forward as couples. How could he not feel envy in his heart? Then again, what could he do other than be envious? There was nothing else for him to try. He still did not have any information regarding Guu or Naya. Where are they? Where are they at? Guu, do you truly wish to never see me ever again? Wait for me. I'll definitely be strong enough to find you. A soul bus speeded on the highway. This bus appeared very ordinary, like it was no different from a normal soul bus. The only difference was that the windows of the bus were covered with curtains so that the people outside could not see the interior at all. Far away, Shrek City's inspection stand was in sight. The bus gradually slowed and queued orderly as it awaited its turn for inspection. At this exact moment, a uniformed staff member walked out of the inspection stand. The appearance of his epaulette clearly showed that he held a certain position at the inspection stand. Quickly walking out of the stand, he gestured at the soul bus. He then pointed at another passageway which was still closed. The soul bus reacted very fast, immediately exiting the queue. It quickly changed direction and moved toward the passageway. The staff walked into the passageway and activated the equipment inside it. The door of the bus opened, and an extremely average-looking middle-aged man alighted. He walked up to the staff and presented his documents. The staff scanned his documents and returned them to him. Then, he went into the control room and raised the barrier. The iron bars were slowly lifted. The middle-aged man turned around and boarded the bus again. He drove the soul bus and passed through quickly. The bus headed in the direction of Shrek City. The iron bars were lowered again, and the staff member walked out naturally. This passageway was still off limits. Such an incident did not attract the attention of the other vehicles. After all, there were special privileges everywhere, even in Shrek City. That was a special passageway that was only accessible to those with connections. They could avoid queuing up and would not even have to pay any fees. However, nobody noticed that after the staff member finished processing the passage of the soul bus, he had immediately gone to the resting area of the toll stand staff. He changed his clothes and even exchanged greetings with his co-workers. Then, he hopped on a soul car and silently drove away. The direction in which he left was not toward Shrek City, but to another far-off location. Due to the increasing number of vehicles on the road, the soul bus lowered its speeding the traffic. There were a dozen or so passengers on board, and they were all silent. All wore black uniforms and head covers, so only their noses and eyes were visible. Due to their attire, the entire soul bus's atmosphere seemed slightly gloomy. The only person who appeared quite ordinary was the driver, the middle-aged man who had gotten off the bus a few moments ago. A man in black who sat in front stood up and quickly walked to the rear of the bus. He said in a low voice, "How's the screening equipment doing?" Another man in black took out an instrument, looked at it and nodded toward him. "Everything's normal. Other than the base radiation, there are no leaks. Very good. With that, he returned to the front. He said to the driver, "Proceed according to plan." "Understood," the driver responded respectfully. At the same time, a certain fanatical air emanated from his eyes, filled with madness. The soul bus continued cruising on the road. Soon after, it reached the inner regions of Shrek City, and the inner city gradually became visible from far away. The bus did not continue on in the direction of the inner city. Instead, it turned into a broader street. After driving for a little longer, it slowed down gradually. On this road, there was a building that appeared to be a hotel. The main doors opened slowly, and the bus drove into it unhindered. After that, it was concealed behind the doors. On Sea God's Island, Atlas Dolor Yunming sat cross-legged on the wooden bed and opened his eyes slowly. For some reason, a sudden shock burst through his system. "Yoli," he called out softly. "What's the matter?" Holy Spirit Dolor walked in from outside. She could clearly hear that there was something wrong in Yunming's tone. "I don't know why, but I feel ill at ease." Yunming's voice had some confusion in it. Yoli was startled with a shock. "What? Ill at ease?" The Atlas Dolor was the current limit Dolor. He had the title of the strongest man on the continent, supreme in the Soul Master's realm. His senses were many times sharper than an average person, and his spiritual powers had reached the spirit domain realm long ago. His senses were so acute that he could even detect the changes in weather across the entire Dolor continent. If something could make him feel uneasy, it must have been very serious. For example, when Heaven Do City was under attack the other day, he had had a premonition. He had even precisely foretold that something was about to happen in Heaven Do City. Alas, when he warned the Federation, they could not adopt the necessary measures in time, which led to the tragedy in Heaven Do City. "Is it strong? Where is it?" Yoli continued asking. Yunming's brows were tightly knit together, then he shook his head. "It's strong, but there's something odd about it. The unease in my heart fluctuates between a strong sensation and a weak one, and I can't tell where it's from. I can't feel where the problem is. This is very strange. Don't tell me that this is a natural disaster?" Yoli spoke with a furrowed brow. "Natural disaster? You don't even have a location?" Yunming shook his head. "I don't have it yet. But the intensity of this feeling is something I've never felt before. Put simply, if it is indeed a natural disaster, then it will be of unprecedented proportions." Yoli drew a cold breath. For Yunming to have said such a thing meant that the potential disaster would be catastrophic. She lowered her voice and said, "Then, what should we do?" Yunming said, "We can only warn the Federation. I believe, after they learned their lesson previously, they'll certainly take some sort of action this time. Meanwhile, I want you to send out a Shrek order. Inform all the graduates from Shrek's inner court, tell them my premonition and have them be on their guard. They can request for assistance from the Academy if they observe a disturbance." "All right. Shall we call a Sea God Pavilion meeting?" asked Yoli. Yunming shook his head. "Let's not do that yet. After all, I have no way of making sure. Ever since I reached the realm I'm at now, my own powers are greatly restricted by the heavens. I can't rule out the possibility that my senses will go wrong sometimes, but it never hurts to be cautious." Yunming had long since been unable to feel the existence of the divine realm. Ever since he reached the realm of a limit Dolor, which was a demigod rank, Yunming frequently felt as if he was in a trance. He seemed to be able to feel something, but at the same time, it was as if he could not feel anything at all. The higher he rose in rank, the more he wanted to seek out the location of the divine realm. Was it like chasing a wild goose which flew into an unseen world? That was why his cultivation dealt with God's will. Hence, he did not rule out the possibility that it was the hand of God that was interfering with him. However, he still had that uneasy feeling. Tang Wulin woke up from his meditation feeling refreshed, his entire body at ease. After his martial soul had awoken for the second time, and after the two great vortex systems were formed, the pace at which his cultivation advanced could be described as a 7-league stride. With each day's cultivation, he clearly felt his own improvement. This was not only the case for his soul power but also his other skills, such as the purple demon eyes. After his bloodline energy vortex had formed, the rate at which his purple demon eyes developed through cultivation had increased threefold. Initially, he was at a bottleneck and it was difficult for him to go any further. However, in this period of time, he clearly felt that his purple demon eyes had improved. This also increased the rate at which his spiritual powers developed. It was already a rare occurrence for a person to have reached the spiritual abyss realm of spiritual power at his age. Those who were able to maintain such a pace of cultivation were few and far between. He got off the bed. As he was preparing to go practice forging, Tang Wulin suddenly felt a wave of scorching heat coming from his wrist. The burning sensation was quite apparent and he instinctively lowered his head to look. He saw on the bracelet which he had got from Dragon Valley, the teardrop-shaped multicolored gemstone was flickering with a faint light. The heat had originated from this. Ever since he had received this bracelet, it had not shown any changes before this. This was the first time it had showed any reactions, but what had happened? What made it heat up? Could it be caused by the stimulation from his bloodline? Feeling somewhat perplexed, Tang Wulin raised the bracelet and looked at it closely. The burning feeling intensified. A sense of foreboding reached his heart. This was very strange. Tang Wulin was never sure what purpose this bracelet served. The only thing he knew was that this was a parting gift from the dragon souls in Dragon Valley. As he felt the scorching heat released by it, coupled with the uneasy feeling in his heart, he could not help but feel confused. Could this have been a warning? Why would a warning sign be sent to him? If this had happened while they were still on Demon Archipelago or when he was outside, he would immediately be in a state of high alert. However, they were still on the grounds of Shrek Academy. In this world, what place would have been safer? Moreover, this was Sea God's Island, the most important location in the academy. He reckoned that there were at least 10 experts who exceeded the rank of a Hyper-Dolor. Even the Atlas Dolor himself, a man of supreme power, was present here. What warning signs could there be? It must be my imagination. Out of caution, Tang Wulin quickly focused his spirits and looked within himself. He observed the status of his bloodline vortex. He wanted to rule out the possibility that the strange reaction from the bracelet was caused by some issue with his Golden Dragon King bloodline. However, his bloodline vortex was flowing normally. His blood essence was exceptionally vigorous, but it would not have affected the circulation of his bloodline vortex. Everything could not have been better. If he kept up this cultivation pace, he would certainly grow stronger. Recently, he had been forging 4 spirit alloys, and the results were great. Given that he had enough strength for soul refinement, there were no obstacles for him. He even started attempting to forge 5 spirit alloys. If he could succeed in doing that, he would most certainly be able to raise the qualities of everyone's battle armor in the future. Even if it was 2-word battle armor, he would be able to make it perform like 3-word battle armor to a certain extent. The temperature of the bracelet on his wrist started decreasing gradually. Everything seemed to be returning to normal. Tang Wulin sighed in relief. He shrugged and decided to put it out of his mind. Who could say what all this was about? He reckoned that he was only being unnecessarily anxious. What can happen in Shrek? As he thought this, he walked out of the wooden hut and went straight into his forging room to begin his practice. Once he stabilized his rank 7 blacksmith abilities, he would start to forge metals for his companions. He had prepared the schematics long ago. As soon as he finished forging, Xinglan and Yuan and Yehui could start making battle armor for everyone. With their cultivation bases, although they would have to go through certain processes, they would not be too slow. After all, they had their secret weapon which was their 1-word battle armor made of spirit alloy. It was enough for them just to modify and upgrade their own existing battle armors. "Mistress, what's the matter?" the girl clad in black asked softly. At its peak, the mountain towered above the clouds. There were huge swathes of clouds as far as the eyes could see. The mountain breeze was a biting cold. It moved the clouds which brought moist air with them across the mountaintop. However, there were no signs of water vapor around them. Gu Yuana stood at the edge of the cliff. Her long, white dress complemented her silver hair beautifully as it flowed ethereally in the wind. Her eyes clearly showed that she was at a loss. She shook her head gently. I don't know why, but I suddenly have this uneasy feeling in my heart. Its rate has increased by 5 beats per minute. What? The girl clad in black was greatly astonished. My lady, Gu Yuana shook her head. I don't know either. How's the preparation of the things that I've ordered you guys to make? The girl in black lowered her voice and said, everything's 60% complete. The early stages are already done. Di Qian said that there were no problems on his side. Once the preparations are completed, and my lady shows her hand, we'll definitely succeed. After that, it will just be a matter of time. Gu Yuana nodded indifferently. After a slight pause, the girl in black ventured further. My lady, the people from the other side have contacted us again. As the saying goes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Are we really not going to work together with them? Gu Yuana turned around abruptly. She swung her right hand, and a wave of terrifying aura erupted from her body. The fearful sensation caused the entire mountaintop to tremble. The clouds and mist around them scattered instantly, forming water droplets which spread outward in the skies. The girl in black was sent reeling from the force. The mountaintop resounded with Gu Yuana's ice-cold voice. How many times do I have to tell you? I will never work together with those filthy things. If you mention them in front of me again, I'll flay your dragon skin. The girl in black disappeared. She did not return to the mountaintop. Gu Yuana's expression was grave. She remained there for a long while in complete silence. However, slowly, the figure surfaced in her mind. We've been apart for so long, is he still doing well? Why am I feeling so uneasy? It seems, in this world, he's the only one whom I'll keep worrying about. The quiet room was very spacious. The dome was an arc, large patches of demonic marks spread out from the dome to the surrounding walls. The room was 30 meters in height, with a diameter of more than 50 meters. It was an extremely wide room. In the center of the room, a total of 12 people sat cross-legged. They were in a circle, mumbling something under their breaths. Soul rings rose around the 12. Anyone that saw them would have been shocked to find that each of the 12 had 8 soul rings rising around them. 8-ringed soul duluos were beings who stood at the peak of the Soul Master's realm. It happened that this many of them had gathered together on this occasion for a single purpose. On the floor upon which they sat, the demonic marks were even more complicated. More horrifyingly, little streams of blood flowed around the marks. Those were fissures which formed the demonic marks, and within them, the flowing blood moved constantly. There were as many as 100 people standing in the outer circle. They were all dressed in black and wore black headgear, with only their left hands being visible. The blood was from their cut-open wrists. A faint smell of blood pervaded the room, which gave it a frightful atmosphere. However, this dense, bloody wave did not reach the outside, not even in the slightest. What was this? What was happening? How could such a phenomenon take place? In the center of the circle formed by the 12 soul duluos who sat cross-legged, there was a purplish-black hexagram on the floor. The bloody aura was flowing outward from the center. Another object stood erect there, shining brightly. It was a 3-meter-tall, purplish-black thing with countless demonic marks upon it. Its tip was a pointed cone, and wing-like appendages spread downward from it. The vast energy from its surroundings surged into it like a river flowing to the ocean. It was like a bottomless void which absorbed the vast energy and a large amount of blood. That was not all. There was also a room next door with the exact same setup. The only difference was that the object in the center of the formation in the room was dark green. The demonic marks were even more peculiar and shifted constantly. Whether it was the 100 people in black in the outer circle or the 12 soul duluo ranked experts in the inner circle, their bodies gradually shriveled due to their loss of energy. However, not a sound came from any of these 2 rooms. Tang sect. Guo Xiaoshu had just settled a string of official duties. His gaze indicated that he was pondering something. At this moment, He heard a firm voice which was full of vigor. Xiaoshu, what are you thinking about? You're so intent on thinking. Why don't we go out for a drink? Zhao Song, the hall master of Power Hall, one of Tang sect's 3 outer halls, walked in from the outside. He caressed his bald head and chuckled. He was on extremely good terms with Guo Xiaoshu. Both of them were of the same age and were once partners who cultivated together. They joined Tang sect at the same time and later became senior officials in Tang sect. Although Guo Xiaoshu's rank in Tang sect was higher than Zhao Song, it had never affected their brotherly relationship. Xiaoshu replied, I'll pass. There are too many internal matters to handle lately. The 2 hall masters aren't here, and the worshippers in the worship hall don't bother themselves with these matters. I'm the only one who can do it. Zhao Song said, the things back in Heaven Dose City aren't settled yet. I thought that the post-disaster works were almost done. Guo Xiaoshu sighed and said, the Holy Spirit cult has re-emerged after hiding for so long, and they are well organized. Although the post-disaster work in Heaven Dose City is near completion, we're still unable to locate the Holy Spirit cult's main powers. Before this, the Vice Hall Master himself was there to oversee the operation, but even he could not find any leads. They only managed to catch the small fries. According to the Hall Master's analysis, Heaven Dose City wasn't the sole target of the Holy Spirit cult since they made such a massive move. It could also happen anywhere. That's why we must always be alert. Zhao Song's brows were furrowed. You've got a point. These despicable bastards. Don't let me get my hands on them. If I catch any of them, I'll pluck off their heads and make them into chamber pots. Guo Xiaoshu chuckled, look at you. You still have that temper of yours. I hear that the outer halls are quite busy these days. You know what, let's go grab a drink. We should relax when we're supposed to relax. Where's Liang Xiaoyu? Call him up as well. Okay. When night fell, Tang sect quietened down gradually. Tang Wulin had completed his forging practice. When he came out of the forging room, it was pitch black outside. He lifted his head and looked to the skies. The skies were dark and the winds were blowing strong tonight. There were no stars around, which gave a strong sense of suppression. At this moment, the colorful gemstone on his wrist began warming up. It was far hotter than it had been. Tang Wulin almost tossed it away. What's wrong? Tang Wulin hastily lowered his head to look. It appeared brighter in the darkness of the night. The gemstone turned blood red. An intense fear rose from the depths of Tang Wulin's heart. This was a warning. It must be a warning. Something was about to happen. If this happened during the day, he could still find ways to calm himself down. However, at this moment, the sensation was overwhelming. It was so intense that he could not disregard it anymore. His body flickered and Tang Wulin leaped out. He ran straight towards Sea God's Island. At the same time, he quickly dialed Xie's soul communicator. Xie, what are you doing? Tang Wulin asked hurriedly. I was about to start meditating. What's wrong, big brother? Can you wait until tomorrow? Yuanan promised me that she'll allow me to meditate with her tonight, he. Tang Wulin said hurriedly, forget about meditation. Call Yuanan, and call the others as well. Come to Sea God's Island as quickly as possible. I have a feeling that something bad is going to happen. Huh? Big brother, what's going to happen? Are you sure? It's already late into the night. Do you still want me to wake everyone up? Tang Wulin said angrily, just do what I tell you and be quick about it. I'm not sure what'll happen, but it doesn't sit well with me. Quickly, let's gather on Sea God's Island. Without a doubt, Sea God's Island was the safest place. Xie trusted Tang Wulin completely. After those words, he hastily said, all right, let's meet at Sea God's Island. We'll be there right away. The call ended and Tang Wulin was already on the edge of Sea God Lake. He tapped the ground lightly with the tips of his toes, and he walked over the ripples. He quickly headed in the direction of Sea God's Island. All of a sudden, the pitch-black night sky flashed brightly. Tang Wulin was proceeding towards Sea God's Island at blinding speed when he instinctively raised his head to look. He saw a peculiar sight. In the skies, dazzling and eye-catching flames trailed behind balls of light and were filling up the skies. The glow of the lights intensified with every passing moment. They were clearly headed toward Shrek Academy. Missiles? Or were they fixed-soul ammunitions? Enemy attack. It was an enemy attack. Shrek City was the largest city on the entire continent. Although Shrek Academy was only an academy, Shrek City had its own exclusive army stationed within. There were 30,000 men, which was the limit set by the Federation for Shrek's army. However, their equipment were of the best quality. There were as many as 5,000 men who were mecha masters, divided into 5 divisions. In addition to that, Shrek Academy had many outstanding talents who were at their peaks. It also had a long history of 20,000 years where Shrek was known as the Invincible. Who would have thought that there was somebody brave enough to launch an attack on Shrek City? The cluster of missiles probably numbered 100 as they cruised toward Shrek City like a meteor shower. Fixed-soul ammunition could be fired over long distances, but Shrek City's anti-missile system was not just for display. If these missiles were fired from outside the city, they would be obliterated once they reached a certain distance from Shrek City. However, these missiles were already above Shrek Academy. From the looks of things, by the time the missiles spread out, they would engulf the whole of Shrek's inner city. Tang Wulin looked at the group of missiles that was like a meteor shower, and he was instantly stunned. What was happening? His bad feeling turned out to be true. A surprise attack aimed at Shrek City had truly happened. It was unbelievable. At this moment, beams of light shot upward from Sea God's Island. In the beginning, there were only 7 figures. Shortly after, dozens of figures rose into the skies consecutively. They were the impressive experts of Shrek Academy's inner court. The 7 beams of light that rose first were the most dazzling. Each beam of light had an imposing manner as they rose into the skies. They then moved toward the falling fixed-soul ammunition. The moment Tang Wulin landed on Sea God's Island, the first explosion sounded. The intense sound and the explosion was like a giant firework. It lit up the whole sky above Sea God's Island, making it seem like it was daytime. What a terrifying explosive force! It was at least a rank 7 fixed-soul ammunition. Tang Wulin stared with his mouth agape. However, he could not do anything to help currently. He did not have his 2-word battle armor yet. Hence, he did not have the ability to fly. He could only look on as the teachers and seniors of the inner court confronted the enemy. Boom! 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 Sounds of explosions were heard continuously. Stunning fireworks erupted in the skies. Fixed-soul ammunition was the most terrifying weapon for the past 10,000 years. Those of rank 7 and above were even regarded as tactical weapons. Currently, the fixed-soul ammunitions erupting in the high skies were all rank 7 and above. This video will end here. Like video and subscribe to my channel.